We've now got the situation arising where the river that's on the far side of that bank is now spilling through onto the canal at this side of the bank. In a very short space of time, I think that bank there will have disappeared, and this water level, which is virtually up to the top of the lock already, will level out with the canal at the other side. Hiya then folks, welcome to Boating on a Budget. And as you've probably seen by that introduction, this is not really one of our normal kinds of videos. To be honest, for these few days I've got planned doing a bit of work in the bedroom and sorting out some work on this knife that I'm making. But then good old Mother Nature put pay to that, because as you're probably aware, over here in the UK, in the last sort of 4 or 5 days, we've had about 3 different storms that have had strong winds and heavy rain. And narrowboats and canals don't like strong winds and heavy rains. So this is a very impromptu vlog, and basically the pictures and footage that we've got wasn't intended as a vlog. To start with, it was just a few pictures we were taking as the weather progressed. Because even up until Saturday night, which the main storm hit on Sunday, even the Environment Agency weren't really forecasting any major floods or particular winds that were going to cause us a problem here. But then as Sunday developed, and you saw that footage that we've just shown, the water levels from the river just down in that direction started to rise. And then the Environment Agency did put on a flood warning, saying that the levels might come up on lower land. And bearing in mind, that river is normally about 12 foot lower than the actual canal, hence why we have to go through that lock. So we weren't initially worried. We kind of thought, yeah, the river's going to come up, but it's not going to reach us. As Sunday progressed though, it became clear that the levels were rising a lot more than anticipated. And then the Environment Agency increased their flood level to say there was a large area around here was likely to flood. So we had to get ready. In effect, that meant moving anything from the lower land up out the way, so that when those waters came up, it wouldn't cause us a problem. At this point, I will also say, I do apologise if the sound and the picture's not perfect. We are still in the aftermath of the storm, and there are still quite strong winds and occasional rain, and also some sunshine coming down at the minute. So on Sunday afternoon, as the water started creeping up, we started to get more and more prepared. Most of the boaters came down and we all mucked in, making sure everything was as safe and secure as possible, and that our cabin up on the top there had also got a supply of food and things in there, just in case the worst scenario hit. Even at that stage though, we weren't really anticipating any problems. We were kind of thinking maybe where I'm stood here might just about get a little bit of water coming over it. But as you'll see by this picture that we took during the evening, after it had gone dark, the water came up so much, this section here lined up to about that mark on the post. We reckon the water level here came up about 4 foot, which, as I said, the river's 12 foot lower. So that meant overall we got about a 16-foot rise of water in the area. To add to that, the winds also picked up, and we had gusts blowing up to, they reckon, about 60 or 70 miles an hour, with a consistent wind of about 40 miles an hour. So the boat was getting blown all over the place. What you will notice is I'm stood next to here is what's called a riser rail, riser pole, or they have various different names. But the idea is, as the water levels rise and fall, the boat goes up and down on those poles. Normally on a canal you wouldn't need anything like this because the water level is pretty consistent. But because there have been issues with flooding here in the past, 2007 was a major flood in this area, and then 2019 there were also floods that raised the canal up. These sort of poles aren't on all the moorings here, and as I'm sure you're aware, we've got nuts and bolts, our other boat next to us. So what we decided to do was press nuts and bolts up to the side of Leander Lady so that they could both raise up and down on these poles. You might well think, well, surely the water coming up's not an issue for a boat, because at the end of the day it floats. And in many ways that's correct. The issues you can have is if your boat's tied too securely to the side and the water comes up, it will tip the boat over as the ropes on the side pull it. That does unfortunately happen all too often. The other major issue that you can get is more as the water levels drop, which often happens quite rapidly. And as the water levels drop, you can imagine if the boat's managed to move over this way, if these poles weren't in the way, the boat can then sit onto the bottom of the actual mooring, and it's either then stranded there, or again, as a worst case scenario, one side sits onto the mooring, the other side stays in the water, and then as the water levels drop, the boat tips and capsizes into the canal. At the moment here in the UK, it's going dark at about 6 o'clock in an evening, and as it started to go dark on Sunday, the water levels were already up, so that we'd got around 6 or 8 inches of water in this area on the mooring where we should be able to walk. At that point we had to make the decision, do we stay on the boat and be able to adjust lines and things, or do we get off the boat and potentially risk not being able to get back to it to help any situation that arises? Obviously part of that decision as well involves everyone else and their boats. We are all a team here on this network. Every boater helps everyone out. So by about 6 o'clock in the evening on Sunday, just as it was going dark, we'd got about 8 inches of water coming over the moorings. So at that stage, it was kind of sit tight and see what happens. And as I say, the water levels kept rising and rising, the rain kept coming down, and obviously the thing to bear in mind is it's not only the rain that's falling here where we are, it's also what's kind of up in the hills that comes down from the Pennines. It all comes down the River Don and then backs up into areas like this. We reckon at that point, over the next few hours, we were probably going up about sort of 4 to 6 inches every hour. But then as it got to about 1 o'clock in the morning, the weather changed slightly for the better. Although the wind picked up, which wasn't ideal, the rain had stopped, and that allowed the rivers to start going down. By 3:30 in the morning, we were back down to a level where we could actually get off the boat and just check everything out on the canal side. We were quite relieved, although obviously we were reasonably safe on board and we'd got everything tied up. You just never know. So after a night of very little sleep and having to get up early this morning as well to take Dawn to work, it's time to have a look round site, see what needs tidying and get this place ship shape again. Due to the preparations before the flood arrived, there wasn't much mess to tidy up. So it was straight on with the first job, and that was putting nuts and bolts back in her usual spot. As I start to empty these drawers, you can see just how high up the water got. I'm now approaching the end of the day, and I think I've made some progress. And to be honest, it's a job that I really wanted to be doing anyway. I'd just not really had the time to do it. Because over the last few months, this area's kind of been used as a bit of a workshop. It's had some of my tools in there, it's had the drawers that get all the little screws and things in. but really it should be the log store, and that's what I'm trying to point back to anyway. We've obviously got the big logs that I need to cut with a chainsaw, hopefully get that done in the next day or two. I've still got the workbench here at the minute. That does want to go down into the new section as I build the new section of garden, but for now it's just going to have to stay there out of the way. And then we've got some kindling that's drying over in the corner there, and I've got some things that we're going to put some plants in, maybe some tomato plants or something like that in them when it gets a little bit warmer. My solar panel's all set back up, and crucially it's now strapped in place as well, so that's not blowing over in the wind anymore. Because this is the solar panel I use when I'm doing electrolysis, which I use it to clean rust off cast iron items. If you've not seen me do it before, I'll put a link in the description below to a video where I get an old rusty cast iron pan and clean it up, get all the rust off, basically just using that, nothing else. Cracking video, have a watch at that when you've done. Yeah, so I'm quite pleased what I've actually achieved today. Nothing like what I wanted to achieve obviously, but them jobs will have to wait. Because tomorrow as well, I now need to start sorting this side out. Because this is the job that I started a few weeks ago. I'm digging it out and levelling it off so that we've got a bit of a patio area. And further down there it'll probably end up, there's a little bit of space where I can actually set the workbench up when I need to, so I can work out the way and crack on with the jobs that I need to do to get this boat finished. Because if you remember, we are actually trying to build a boat. I'd started getting some of this done, but then when the floodwaters came up, it's moved all the sleepers and things that I got laid in position. It was just to show you, the water when it reached its peak was actually just above this bench. That's how high the water had got. So it's disturbed everything, and it's kind of moved all the bits of wood around, and to be fair, we just plunked a few bits on here because we actually thought when it was flooding it wasn't going to get this high. So I'd stuck some of the spare batteries and things there. So we need to clear it all off, and we can see from there what we can get done. After the initial tidy up, it was time to start refitting the sleepers that we're using as an edge for this patio. whilst putting the sleepers back in place, I was having a good think about some sort of system I could use to make sure they didn't float away again. So first off, I needed to get the axe out and give that a good sharpen up. Then it was time to make some securing pins out of some scrap timber. Well, we're now middle of Tuesday afternoon, and I think I've finally got the place back to more or less how it was before these floods came. A couple of little jobs I've still got to do, mainly regarding these riser rails that I showed you earlier. One of them, it's catching the rope, so as the rope's going up and down, it's sort of cutting into it, so I'm going to have a look at a way of dealing with that, because obviously we don't want that rope ending up getting cut. And they're both sat a little bit back from the actual edge of the mooring, so it does mean that there is still a lip, and as the boat comes down it could still catch on that. So I need to kind of create some kind of angled runoff for it, if you like. That's a job for another day though. So it has been very much an impromptu video, this one, and obviously we didn't get a great deal of footage or pictures of the actual storm itself. Like I said, we weren't planning on making a video about it. But hopefully it's given you a little insight into what it's like being on a boat when there is the bad weather, the storms and the floods that come along from time to time here in the UK. So thanks for watching then, folks. I'm going to carry on with a bit of digging for now, and hopefully next time you see us we'll be doing that project in the bedroom that we thought we were going to be doing this week. See you all later.